Tunasonga mbele watu wote wa Jamhuri Kenya yetu. Tunasonga mbele watu wote
wa Jamhuri Kenya yetu. Haya sisi sote wananchi tuende mbele. Heko Jamhuri, heko Jamhuri, heko Jamhuri, Kenya yetu yaenda mbele.
Tarafa zaenda mbele,
wilaya zaenda mbele, mikoa yaenda mbele, nchi yetu yaenda mbele. Heko Jamhuri,
heko Jamhuri, heko Jamhuri,
Kenya yetu yaenda.
Mwalimu Songa is a superstar.
That's his song again.
Yeah,
how come we never learned that song?
Phantom of the Opera at St. Mary's, my friend. Yeah. Go to real schools like Mkobo High School.
And the King and I. You need to go back to school, man.
Seriously.
Man, you missed high school.
Those are great schools.
You got gaps.
Rites of passage. Rites of passage.
No, but come on. I learned the song.
Yeah. No, that one was a Kanu song.
And welcome back to Chef Koinange live at the Intercontinental. Here with two amazing Kenyans. Kenya Daima, right?
Yes.
There you go.
Daima, yeah.
What Kenya Daima? Because you're plural.
Kenya.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no. but the initiative is Kenya Daima.
Mdaima. First he said Mdaima Kenya.
No,
Saints.
Kenya Daima.
Kenya
Forever
Daima.
Kenya.
Oh, okay, that. Right. Initiated by Kepsa and Polycarp Igathe, Polycarp Handicap, CEO of Vivo Energy, and this man has been Mr. CEO from Tiger Harco Tiger.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
CAM, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Kepsa. This man at 43, not bad. Njiru, the fearless Mgwana. The man calls it like he sees it, and he talks about everything that we do on a daily basis that we need to improve upon to become Kenya Daima. Gentlemen, we have to talk about these things. Yeah. And before the break, we'll talk about the criticism of the government. It's not bad to criticize, but the way we criticize, maybe it's a little raw.
And I think it's not just the way we criticize government, it's the way we criticize ourselves. We are talking ourselves down. We are self-immolating. We are disparaging our country. Sometimes when you hear the narrative, the fact that Volkswagen did what it did in Germany, I don't think you've heard a German saying, my country is useless. This is the only country where we are very quick to really disparage our countries in ways that are destructive long-term, in ways that kill hope of young people. The Pope came, he addressed young people. Obama came, President of the United States, he addressed young people. When we disparage our country like that, we make young people lose hope. Hope is everything.
Ken, why do we hate ourselves so much?
Sometimes I think it's the big identity crisis question that is rooted in what I call Ushenzi. Our value system is all shambled up, right? By the way, you remember some time back I was telling you there was a lady, a historian who was talking about the six political crisis, and she was talking about the crisis of distribution, which we are trying to address, the crisis of legitimacy, the crisis of identity, the crisis of participation, and some of these we've tried to address through the constitutional review process, but we've never talked the crisis of identity. We don't know who we are. I mean, we have to keep going out there even sometimes to get energy, then come back to criticize. You know, we don't move of our own inner volition, right? And I think the next phase, when we talk about prosperity can only be rooted on a sense of on a deep sense of understanding who we are, understanding our values and our value systems, so that hard work becomes hard work. So that if your work is just to make noise, then we dismiss you. And by the way, I keep saying when I talk about values, sometimes people think these are far off things which are not tenable in this country. And I keep saying we had values in African society. Think about even just the whole question of marriage. If you came and told your father you wanted to marry a certain young lady from a certain family, the first thing you asked is, who are those people? Are they thieves? Are they witches? Are they wanted to know.
Yeah.
And if they were thieves, that was it. You see, but today we have lost it. I may be the most corrupt fellow. I even sell drugs. As long as I have money, it's okay. I can marry your daughter.
In a minute.
That's what we are calling Ushenzi.
And Polycarp, we take it a step further. Now we're looking south towards Tanzania, no less, a country we would never even consider growing up in any way. And now we are asking, what would Magufuli do? Now he is our benchmark. He is our...
Jeff, I know I'm speaking for every member of Kenya's private sector when I say the most difficult country to do business in East Africa. And this is not to disparage Tanzania, has been Tanzania. To be compared
Now
to Tanzania almost makes you wonder, what are we doing? And I think we've got wonderful democratic space, and we should defend it. Kenyans must be allowed to speak up the way they know how. But we have to now start perhaps saying, we've got to stop speaking like teenagers, you know, and do some bit of introspection.
You don't like me.
Like mature adults.
Nobody
you
likes me.
You know, you hit my pimples.
Yeah.
You know, like, and really start talking to each other with a little bit, talking to each other, not shouting at each other. And this is not a problem of government. It's actually a bigger problem in private sector. Give you an example. We have such democratic space in Kenya beyond even what they have in the West. You know, I was surprised by the West when there's a fellow who stayed at the airport somewhere in Moscow called Snowden because he leaked a document. There's a journalist who leaked a document, a security document from the Public Accounts Committee. And the noise that was in this country, the man was released very quickly. And when you look at those, we don't celebrate the space we've created ourselves. We don't see that in this other country, I think, is he Snowden? Has he been released? I don't know.
I think he's in some embassy somewhere.
No, he's still
But what,
in the
you know,
embassy.
and all he did was leak documents, which is, you know, that's all he did.
Yeah.
But when you look at the two measures, we are a better country. We actually did better. But we talk ourselves down, and I'm getting worried that it's going to hurt the social pillar of 2030. It's going to hurt our political pillar, our political journey. It's going to hurt our economic journey.
Yeah. Ken, how can we change the narrative? Yes, we are a nascent democracy. We're
Yes.
young. You know, we're juveniles, like you said.
You know, one of the things that we've been conversing around as far as the next phase of Kenya Daima is concerned is what we are seeing as a national behavior and culture change program or process. You know, if you think about Nyerere's Tanzania, when he brought his Ujamaa, that was rebooting the mind in terms of the software. And so Tanzanians started thinking in a certain way. They started calling each other ndugu, kaka, naomba. So when they want something, they say naomba. In Kenya, somebody says nipe.
Or lete.
Lete. In fact, I remember once going to Dodoma, and in a restaurant, you know, the waiter comes, and in Iwaisho, Kenya, I said, nilete soda, akapita. So when she came back, I said, "Sinilisema unilete soda." You know the way we talk in
now
Kenya.
you're making it worse for her.
And so my fellow Tanzanian friends told me, "Nyinyi wa Kenya, hamna tabia, hamna heshima. Wasema lete ni yako." So I remembered I was in Tanzania, and when she came back, I said, "Naomba uniuzie soda," and the soda came. But it is such crudity that is increasingly defining us. Look at the way matatus behave, the way they'll shout at people, the way they'll treat women without decorum. You know, look at the way our politicians talk at each other. I keep saying they even froth from their mouths, just insulting, you know, the other guy on the other side. And look at the way our young people have taken up to that in terms of, in schools, banning schools. Yeah, every time when, for instance, teachers are out screaming haki yetu, then the kids are also out screaming haki yetu. And so we need to change that culture. You know, I like borrowing change management is a discipline on its own that corporates use to move the people side of a change. For instance, if you have a major transformational effort you want to move through an organization, you have the strategy, right? The strategy document is locked down. This is what we are going to do. But for you to be able to get people to move, then you must have a plan to move people to the next level. So that what has happened in this country, in my view, in my humble view, is that we have a new constitution. We have Vision 2030. We have laws, but the thinking is still yesterday's, right?
Yeah.
So that you're still throwing the same political mud you threw before the new constitution.
Let me come in and say
Yep.
that the narrative must move from protest. We have protested for far too long. The narrative must move from protest. We have to now move to prosperity, to another narrative.
So we're stuck in the 60s, like you said.
We are starting to protest haki yetu. And I think the Constitution did a good thing, because for a long time we were never given the space to speak. So the Constitution over 50 times mentioned the word rights, haki yetu. So people are not wrong in adopting that. But our national anthem, the third stanza, now that you got me singing.
Yes.
Natujenge
Taifa letu. That one I know.
ndio wajibu wetu. Kenya istahili heshima, tuungane mikono pamoja kazini, kila siku tuwe na shukrani. Haisemi tuungane mikono tukule pamoja.
Na it also says wajibu wetu.
Yes.
Ndio wajibu wetu. That refrain is at the heart of Kenya daima. Our responsibility. Before I come and say Jeff Koinange and the media, what am I doing as Poly? What am I doing as Njiru? And you know, we in KEPSA used to wonder, what is Njiru about, this Ungwana story? Because we've realized we can write all the laws we want to write, but our software is broken. Our hardware is right. We have great hardware in standard gauge railway, in 20,000 roads, in agriculture, in a new constitution, but we are still protesting. We have to come and now start looking at our software. How do we talk to one another? There are even Kenyans who don't believe or respect the minority, or what I call the government in waiting, which is the opposition. They have a role. We have to pay attention to them. And we in Kenya Daima are saying, we're also asking them, tell us who is your shadow cabinet. We talk to them, we give you information, which will help you hold the government in check. So we have to start bringing hygiene, infuse hygiene, reset our narrative for this country.
Yeah.
Then we will attract tourists. Today,
Reset the software.
software.
Yeah.
Reset the software.
Ken, Pope Francis, you mentioned him a moment ago, and you know he had great speech to the youth in Kasarani. I don't know if you guys watched that.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep.
So the thought was, if the glass is full, it would spill over and it would benefit everybody, even the ones down there. But this time the glass is full and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, benefiting less people.
Are you talking about the glass in terms of the economy or
Everything.
Well, I think the question that we should be asking ourselves, because by the way, when we talk about change, and when we talk about taking Kenya to the next level, for me, it's not even so much about that glass being full, but it is about who you are and what you're doing. You know, we have this habit of pointing fingers, the president. In fact, we think the president should resolve everything. Very soon you'll start calling the president into your matrimonial home. My wife is not cooking me food. Mr. President, come and resolve my marital problems. You know, this country, and I've told you that, I think I've talked about this story before. There's a documentary called The Men Who Built America. It was Vanderbilt, there was Rockefeller,
yes.
J.P. Morgan, there was Andrew Carnegie, and there was Henry Ford. You know, railroads were not built by government. In fact, there was no devolution sending money to the people. The banks, the banking system, there was a time J.P. Morgan, by the way, was so big that he was actually the Federal Reserve Bank. They had to break him down, as it were, all right? When we talk about people like Koinange, they started melting and producing steel on levels that had never been seen before, all right? Vanderbilt basically laid the railroads, built shipping, okay? To the extent that at some point in time, he controlled more than 40% of the railroads in America, and the railroads are what opened up America. Okay, they may have had their problems, but the point is, America was not built by the president and the government. It was built by the people, all right? So that today, when you talk about, that narrative continues. When you talk about companies like Walmart, and you know, he also runs this big multinational.
Huge.
Their total take-home is way larger than what 30 million Kenyans are doing. Because the narrative is, it's our turn to eat, or we are waiting to go and eat. So nobody wants to work. The narrative is keep spreading the money. You're not even asking who is baking the cake or how the cake is being baked. We're not talking about productivity. We're not talking about man hours. And by the way, these are things we knew in our traditional society. There was no day your brother sat at home sending you SMSs in traditional African society, send me money, and it's not working. Yeah. Everybody had to go to the farm, right? And so for me, it is that change of mindset that needs to come into place. We need to be asking ourselves, each and every Kenyan, and as I say that, I know there's a question of opportunities which need to be created, but then again, who created opportunities for Vanderbilt and J.P. Morgan? I mean, those guys just went out and did it.
And yet we're criticizing one standard gauge railway that's just come in.
Can I tell you, let's forget about government, let's talk about the citizens themselves. I speak to a lot of young people who we want to hire into business. And increasingly, you're starting to see young graduates or people qualifying with degrees, diplomas. They think the certificates they earn from university are a meal ticket. They flash it as a meal ticket. They don't know it's a license to hunt. your degree, your qualifications. So you ask some, Polycarp, help me get a job. I ask them, how many applications have you sent in the last 1 week?
He tells you.
I have not sent. I'm waiting for a hookup. That's the answer. Now, because they have come to believe only if I get a hookup. The days I left college not too long ago, in the mid-90s, I would send a letter every hour. 24 letters I would send, asking for a job. At least I was doing my bit. And eventually one comes opening. So that effort is, Kenya Daima is about saying, take responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, you see somebody driving a car in Kenya today. It's so easy to see plastic bottles flying through the window. And if you ask kaka, mbona unafanya hivyo? Wewe kwani unafikiria wewe ni kanjo?
Kwenda huko, yeah. And they
You know,
abuse you.
that's
They
the
abuse you.
answer. That's the answer you get.
Ushenziness.
Yeah, ushenziness.
So
yeah.
who's going to come and collect that? Who's going to come and collect that? And that is a software.
Yeah.
That's why Kenya Daima really believes we can tap into Ungwana Institute and say, Leonard Mambo Mbotela used to talk about it. And ask us, Jay, who knew Ungwana?
For almost 50
Ungwana
years.
kweli?
Can you imagine?
For almost 50 years.
Did we listen?
And a lot of parents today are suffering at home.
Yes.
Because they're
Quietly.
educating children. Then their children are saying, ujanitafutia kazi. There is somebody even watching TV as we speak right now who's telling the parents, and the parent is feeling very guilty that I've not helped my son or daughter find a job.
And the parent took them through school. They got a degree.
They got a degree.
And they're sitting there waiting.
You know, it's like I was, you know, when I look at again, allow me just to use American stories. In the 80s when they were drilling for oil, the rigs were made out of wood, and they managed to drill that oil. But today, even our universities, and they have geology departments, young people, nobody can do it. We have to wait for people or somebody to come and do it for us. I mean, there's something wrong.
And let me sympathize with our politicians.
There's
you know, we
something
criticize them a lot. Do you know a politician, by the time they get to their village, in fact, we need to celebrate politicians as we celebrate Jamhuri. For you to raise your hand and say, I want to become a political leader in Kenya, my hat's off to every political leader in this country.
The reason being?
Because that person is expected to finance funerals, is expected to finance weddings.
You're a constituency ATM.
You're a constituency ATM without a PIN.
Yeah.
You know, I'm serious.
No 4-digit PIN.
Yes.
And then when
and if you don't give them money, they'll insult.
And when that person, if that person is under pressure, then fiddles with mileage, we say pigs, M-pigs.
Yeah.
That's what we call them.
Yes.
And it's us who've actually led them down that path. If I one day invite the politician to tell their story here, what goes on in their constituencies, they suffer.
Really?
So anybody who stands up to serve the public, on the other hand, anyway, we are telling them, you have to resist temptation. We even pray in the Lord's Prayer, don't lead me into temptation and deliver me from evil.
So you think Aden Duale suffers?
Of course.
I think he does.
Of course. All Kenyan politicians suffer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, they do.
I think
they
they
do. And by the way, it also fuels corruption. I mean, think about, I've never understood, assuming I'm going to get a job in Vivo, I've never understood why I should carry bags of money to go bribing people in Vivo. Because that's what happens every time there's an election.
To get a job.
Yes, to get a job. Every time a politician comes and says, I want to represent you, then he has to come carrying bags of money. So, like a friend of mine once told me that he had spent 100 million. So when he goes into office, what do you think he's going to do?
He's going to make up for them 100 million.
In fact, he has to make 200 million because Jeff is making another million to come and pour, so to speak.
And the citizens believe, because we've elected you to go to Bunge, either the National Assembly or Senate, you go find your own money there.
Yeah.
So this is the foundational problem, and that's why electoral financing. So then we blame these politicians. Then they get very frustrated, and
it's a cycle. It's a cycle.
We're in a vicious
Would you
cycle.
stand?
Never. I don't know how to politic.
Ken?
Would I stand? I never say never.
Good answer.
I never say never, but it's mucky.
It's mucky out
It
there.
is mucky.
It's ugly.
Yes, and my biggest problem is that muckiness.
My biggest fear is that, you know, when your wife wears a nice dress and drives a nice car, they say you ni pesa yetu. No, that's my biggest.
Isn't Zakuiba?
You know, that's why I really I sympathize
but your
with
wife
politicians.
she wears a nice dress now and drives a nice car?
I thank God.
Natujenge taifa letu.
Ndio wajibu wetu.
Kenya istahili
heshima. Tuungane mikono pamoja kazini. Kila siku.
Let's give thanks every day.
Tuwe na shukrani.
Let's stop
I love
blaming.
it. I love it. Gentlemen, let's take a break, come back and talk about the future now. Jamhuri Day just hours away.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the future going forward. Can we turn this around? My guests today, Polycarp Igathe and Njiru, folks. You can't get any better than this. Twitter handles at Pigathe Igathe, at Ungwana Kenya, at Koinange Jeff. The hashtag we're using tonight, Jamhuri Day. JKL takes a break. We'll be back. Plenty more in a moment.